Hi, my name is Aris. I experienced sexual abuse between ages 15 and 17. At first, it was in my house, and then it was also in a car. When I was in high school, I'm trans, by the way. So this was pre me coming out, pre-transition, pre-everything. I had a girlfriend in high school, and she would force me into giving her sexual favors or like doing sexual things with me when we were hanging out that I didn't want to do. But I quickly realized that if I said no, she'd like throw a temper tantrum and start crying and, just throwing a fit. And then my parents would hear and like ask about what's going on. So I'd have to like make up some story of why she's upset. So then I just kind of learned that I have to just go along with it, or she's gonna make a scene and I'd have to cover for her. So I ended up just having to do these sexual favors for her that I didn't want to over the course of 2 years. And when we were together, I didn't realize that this was sexual abuse. I just thought that that's how relationships were. If someone wants something, you have to just give it to them, even if you don't really want to. A phrase that I've heard that kind of like puts that into perspective is, you don't see red flags when you're wearing rose-tinted glasses because just everything looks red. And that's kind of how that relationship was for me. And then she ended up cheating on me, and that's when I finally had the guts to break up with her. And after that, she begged to have me back and like get back together. And I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. Because at this point, I was starting to realize how manipulative she was. And then that turned into her begging to have sex with me, because we never had like full-on sex when we were together, because we were teenagers, we're in high school. And I said no over and over, and she begged me for months to have sex with her. And at the time, she was the only person who knew I was closeted trans. And I had no intention of coming out, no intention of transitioning. I was just planning on just repressing it for the rest of my life because I was too scared to ever come out, and she knew this. And then so she started to threaten me, if you don't have sex with me, I'm going to out you to everyone, your parents, teachers, all your friends. I'm going to tell everyone. So from that point, I just had to go along with it and do as she told me to. So then she made me sneak out of my house in the middle of the night, and she drove her car to like just a spot in my neighborhood. And then she locked me inside her car and raped me. And she did this multiple times. Like 4 or 5 times. And I just couldn't do anything about it, because if I tried to tell anyone, that I'd have to out myself, which I just was not going to do at that point. So it was a double-edged sword. If I try to report this and tell anyone, then she wins essentially. It really messed me up. It affected how I handled relationships from then on out, even up until now. I didn't date for a very long time after that happened. It only wasn't until relatively recently that I started dating again. It's made just any sort of like sexual encounter very difficult and frustrating. on a number of levels. But it also, a lot of people who go through sexual abuse end up having some form of hypersexuality where they just end up craving sex to try to prove to themselves that they can actually make it enjoyable, even though it's just self-destructive. And so I had a lot of that, of just craving it and then trying to find gratification in that, and then never actually getting it, and just, you know, bad experiences with that. I had a partner that I dated for a little bit when I was in college, and I had to end up breaking up with him because every time we tried to have sex, I'd have a panic attack, and then we'd have to stop things. But over time, I gradually kind of figured out what I couldn't do, what my triggers were, you know, talking about it in therapy, going through all of that, and slowly kind of starting to heal. I didn't talk about it for years. I didn't really say anything to anyone for a very long time after it happened. But I did talk to some of my very close friends about it, and they sort of were just kind of there to support me and, you know, tell me that things would get better and kind of just keep me sane while I was figuring the rest of everything out. I ended up going to therapy around the time that I had started coming out and transitioning. So I was able to finally open up to a professional about that, and being able to go to a therapist who did specialize in sexual abuse and PTSD really helped, because they were able to use some more like psychological methods to parse through that and be able to understand what happened to me and how to get past it. So just talking about it in therapy, and just kind of learning to open up again and like learning to trust people again after all of that betrayal. For people who've survived sexual assault, a message that I'd like to give them is that it does get better. Like, yeah, it sucks for a long time, but it does get better. You just have to reach out for support, and reaching out for support is the hardest thing. It's not easy to let someone in on what happened to you and allow them to help you. But one thing that helped me in getting support is realizing that in therapy, everything is confidential. They can't tell anyone, they can't report anything. So you can feel safe to talk to a licensed therapist about that type of thing because it is confidential. And so that really helped me in, you know, getting therapy, getting a therapist who is specialized in sexual abuse, PTSD, is a very helpful thing you can do. I'm just gonna say that I didn't really start healing until I did reach out for help. And being in that space of knowing something's very wrong, but being too afraid to do anything about it, is not where you want to be forever. Reaching out for support was the thing that allowed me to heal. And I know everyone's journey is different, but finding a licensed therapist who specializes in those things, knowing that it's confidential, and knowing that you have a safe space where you're not going to be judged where you're not going to be belittled in any way, where you're just going to be treated with the utmost amount of respect and empathy. It really does help to know that you can reach out. I guess one thing I'd like to say to people who haven't been through it is to be there for people who have. Don't dismiss their stories. Don't try to guilt trip them to think it was their fault or make jokes about it, because it's a serious topic and it really has messed a lot of people up. So actually be supportive and listen to what the person has to say, and actually try to understand. Like, don't just let them vent. Like, actually try to find common ground, actually try to walk in their shoes, in a sense, to empathize and sympathize with what they went through so that you can hopefully better help them. My name is Aris Elliott Sperling, and I am a survivor, not a victim.